feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule!
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. We're just a couple of comics who are talking sports. We're in the middle of a block series of episodes where we're leading up to the big game, if you know what I mean.
Big game.
Talking soccer, but the way Europeans say it. Who are we talking today?
We're talking football. We did our wild card round last weekend with the 2000 tours on the Sunday between the Niners and Giants, as well as the Steelers and Browns. And now we're in the divisional round, Chris, and we have two of the wackiest, insane divisional round games in NFL history as far as the postseason goes.
I was going to say, because I feel like both of these, we really have four teams that thought they were going to go through multiple times, but we only see two of them going through. This time, 2005, Steelers versus Colts.
The Immaculate Redemption game, as we'll get into. Yes, rest in peace, Franco Harris. But 2005, the AFC Divisional Playoffs. It is the number 1 seeded Indianapolis Colts against the number 6 seeded Pittsburgh Steelers. And both of these teams were on very different trajectories at different points in this season. 2005 Colts, they had lost the previous two postseasons to the New England Patriots up in Foxborough, where they got absolutely spanked by that defense, embarrassing Peyton Manning and their high-powered offense, which led Colts general manager Bill Polian and head coach Tony Dungy to complain to the NFL to change the pass interference rules because Ty Law was their daddy in those two games. But everyone's assuming 2005 is the Colts' year.
And they thought it was going to be the same matchup where they were going to meet up with the Patriots in the next round. They thought they were just going to blow right through the Steelers because, like, if you looked at the regular seasons and their first meeting, I mean, the Colts really should have.
Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, all of the NFL, they are coming in their pants over the thought of a Brady and Manning AFC championship game. But what already happened the night before is New England lost in Denver, and Mike Shanahan, to his credit, had a ridiculously successful record against Bill Belichick wherever he ended up coaching. So the Broncos are in, and the Broncos are watching this game thinking, oh my God, the last time we went to the postseason and played the Colts, they absolutely destroyed us. But the Colts this season, they're the media darlings. They have just an absolutely stacked roster. They start the season 13-0, one of which includes a Monday Night Football win against the Steelers in Indianapolis, 26-7 in Week 12. And everyone's talking about them going 16-0 because they're a fantastic team. Peyton Manning is your quarterback. I mean, their number 1 third down offense. He threw 3,747 yards and 28 touchdowns. Mind you, he's coming out of a lot of these games, especially at the end of the season, in the third quarter. So his stats could be way better, yet he's still first-team All-Pro.
But this is definitely prime Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
This is like and this is what people are saying was like, this should be a Super Bowl team, especially when they go 13-0 in the beginning of the season, and everyone's like, oh, yes, they're ready.
Yeah, I mean, they're ready. Edger and James, much like Peyton Manning, in the Hall of Fame as your running back. Over 1,500 yards rushing, 13 rushing touchdowns, and almost 350 yards receiving. Marvin Harrison, Hall of Fame, Pro Bowl wide receiver. Over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. Reggie Wayne will probably make the Hall of Fame this year.
Yep.
Over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then you have Dallas Clark as your tight end, one of the better pass-catching tight ends of his era. Veteran offensive line, Tarek Glenn, Jeff Saturday. Best offense, arguably, in the league.
That's what people were saying going into this postseason was this is the best offense, not necessarily the best defense, but good enough to where they can blow out teams and run away with games.
Their defense was fast, and they were an up-the-field pursuit defense in that 4-3 Tampa 2 mold that Tony Dungy had. As far as their defense, they were number 2 actually in points allowed because they would just get out ahead of everybody. And on the outside, you have guys like Dwight Freeney, who will be in the Hall of Fame probably the year after this. Robert Mathis putting up ridiculous sack numbers. And then inside, guys like Monte Rager and Corey Simon providing kind of that, double team action as far as freeing up their outside pass rushers. A lot of speedy linebackers. Cato June made the Pro Bowl that year with 5 picks, but David Thornton and then Gary Brackett in the middle. And then on the outside, they had Nick Harper and Jason David playing corner, and then Bob Sanders was their all-pro free safety with Mike Doss as their strong safety. So, they were a solid defense. They just got none of the headlines.
Yes. And this, just if you look at what this team was going into it, they were the Super Bowl favorites. I feel like going into the previous years, it looked like the Patriots were the better team, and then this year was the year that everybody was like, oh, this is going to be like the torch being passed.
Exactly.
And,
well,
we see.
Let's talk about
it. It
does get passed to somebody, but their special teams I did want to bring up. They have a former Pro Bowl kicker named Mike Vanderjagt, who had made some comments about Peyton Manning a couple seasons prior at the Pro Bowl. That
they had some words.
Let's just say that. Calling him an idiot kicker.
Yep.
Didn't think Peyton could get it done when the game was on the line. And, sometimes the ball finds people, Chris. The ball finds people.
It's very interesting because it almost foreshadows kind of like what happens here, because I feel like neither of them, if you get to the end of this game, were playing for each other.
No.
And
I did want to bring up, though, the 13-0 start.
Yeah.
They ended up losing their next game against the then San Diego Chargers with Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson and a Wade Phillips coached 3-4 defense that confused the hell out of Peyton Manning as far as different coverages, different pressures. And it's weird during this era. That was the one team, even over New England, that Manning could never figure out.
Oh, yeah.
Was San Diego. For whatever reason, San Diego had their number. And a couple seasons later, Rivers will get hurt in the first half. Billy Volek will win a road playoff game against Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
They kind of struggle towards the end of the season. They lose the next week to the eventual NFC champion Seahawks. And then end up beating the Cardinals week 17 to go 14-2 and lock up that number 1 seed. And they have the pleasure of playing the number 6 seed because the way the playoff bracket it still works now, the lowest seed will always play the top seed. And it's not a normal number 6 seed, Chris. It's a different 6 seed. A 6 seed which will live in my heart forever.
There you go.
The Pittsburgh Steelers of 2005. This was a very wacky year.
Yes.
I'll say that. The previous season, they went 15-1 with a messiah arriving at quarterback because Tommy Maddox, American hero, was injured. They lost the AFC title game to New England. And after said game, future Hall of Fame running back Jerome Bettis was thought to be retired. But he was not. He decides to come back for one more year because the Super Bowl in 2000, after the 2005 season, is played in Detroit.
Yep.
And the good thing for the Steelers, everybody not named Plexico Burress is coming back to this already stacked roster. They kind of shocked the NFL after Big Ben was inserted into the starting lineup. Their defense is already badass. You're thinking, okay, if it's not going to be Indy and it's not going to be New England, it's probably going to be Pittsburgh.
Well, going into it, you can tell this is a team mixed with a young quarterback and a bunch of veterans. That's the kind of thing that you see, and they know how to win coming off of this 15-1 season and then losing to the Pats. And then you kind of go into this season and they kind of have more of like
weird season.
I was going to say it's more of like a feeling out the team season kind of thing, even though they have so many veterans on this team.
They start 7-2, which is probably what they should have started as far as their schedule indicated. But Ben is injured in week 4 on Monday Night Football against the Chargers. He has a knee injury, which takes him out of 4 games this year. So Maddox and Charlie Batch have to end up playing. And after their 7-2 start, they drop 3 in a row. And these are 3 big games. They lose to Baltimore on the road in overtime with Maddox. Then Ben's first game back, they get blown out by the Colts 26-7. in week 12, and then they lose the division. I will never forget watching this game, how pissed I was. They lose to the fucking fly-by-night Bengals. And Ocho Psycho at home, 38-31. And now they're not only really out of the division race, at 7-5, you still have San Diego and Kansas City ahead of you for the last wild card.
Yep.
But they all end up coming together. And they win their final 4 games, and they win them very convincingly.
Well, you see it just completely different from the Colts, and I feel like they almost have a better momentum going into this game.
You never want to play that hot team going into the post, because their last 4 regular season games against the Bears, Vikings, Browns, and Lions were all playoff games.
Yeah.
I will say that Browns game was hilarious. They beat them 41-0 on Christmas Eve.
Oh, yeah.
They put in their backups in the third quarter, and a drunk fan ran on the field, and James Harrison all but powerbombed this dude. It was
I distinctly remember
a thing
that.
of goddamn beauty.
Man.
But are they 11-5? Yeah, but they're more of a 13 or so win team.
Yes.
As far as health is concerned. Ben's leading the offense. Over 2,300 yards passing, 17 touchdowns, and 3 rushing touchdowns. The meat of this team, though, is the running game. This is before Ben kind of takes his ascent. They're not necessarily hiding him, but they know what their strength is.
They're not overusing him. They're not relying on him. And then they have this blitz crazy defense.
Yeah.
It's such a Steeler make of this team. That's the thing that I feel like when you look at this team and this game, you're like, yeah, they have a strong running game. Yeah, they blitz every other down.
But in terms of the running game, they have a new running back.
Oh, yes.
Bettis and Deuce Staley are both hurt to start the year, and undrafted free agent. He didn't even dress for senior day at North Carolina, takes the job away, and has basically over 1,200 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. Bettis is your closer near the goal line. He scored 9 on the ground for them. And then you get Verron Haynes as your third down back to basically provide the pass protection, and then some catching and some draws and sweeps and stuff. Wide receiver, Hines Ward, takes kind of a dip due to the quarterback, shuffling they have that year. Still 11 receiving touchdowns. Randall L. has only 1. And it was the first week of the year.
Yep.
Oh, my God. And
then he has one in this game.
Well, he does.
But yes, it's very interesting because I feel like coming off of with Maddox, with that, because we saw it in the Browns game where it was just like, oh, yeah, this is a great receiving core. It almost like they needed to relearn the timing with this new quarterback where it wasn't necessarily the same, just like...
No,
play calling, I feel like.
No, definitely different play calling. Malarkey's gone to Buffalo, so it's Ken Wisenhunt as the offensive coordinator. Yep. They try and replace Burris in the aggregate as far as Cedric Wilson, who dropped that punt in our 49ers game. Go listen to that episode. And Quincy Morgan, who wide receivers coach Bruce Arians coached in Cleveland. Doesn't work. But they do get a scoring guy to replace him in the aggregate in rookie tight end Heath Miller. And he just came out guns blazing this season. 6 touchdowns. And then up front, Jeff Harding's former Pro Bowler, Kendall Simmons, monster at right guard, Max Starks in his second year at right tackle, Marvell Smith, former Pro Bowler, and our boy Alan Faneca, All-Pro at left guard.
Of course.
That's just a ground and pound offense. And then as far as defense, still got the same guys from 2002 up front with Von Olhoff and Hampton and Smith. Smith is a monster this year for him. Ferrier and Larry Foote, who took over for Bell, are up the middle. And then Joey Porter had an absolutely monster season for them as an all-pro pass rusher. And his former college teammate on the other side, Clark Higgins. They got 3 Colorado guys in the front 7 starting. None of them went to CU. Take that, assholes. But as far as their secondary, we talked in our 2002 episode how god-awful they were as far as stopping the pass. Things have changed, Chris.
Yeah, I feel like in those years, that's like the positions that they were trying to focus in on, because you have to do that as a franchise. Yeah. You have to be like, all right, we can't look at these positions. We have to get first, second round picks in these. And their secondary really, this is what makes the blitz kind of possible.
Because they can cover,
yes,
at least.
Because they can at least do one-on-one coverage most of the players. It was not the case.
All the guys could click and close and tackle, too, which was good because you had Chris Hope, who's in a contract year, who had a very fine season. Then on the outside, you have Ike Taylor, who's now in his third year, finally starting. He would have made more Pro Bowls if his hands weren't so bad. He was like that kid in Little Giants, hot hands, like just hands of stone. The next 2 games he'll play in, he comes up big, but he just could not catch the football. And then Deshae Townsend finally overtakes Scott in Washington at one spot, and then they have rookie Bryant McFadden filling in for both as their third corner. And they're just a tough group of sons of bitches. And Joey Porter, before this game, is talking about how they wants the Colts to play a little bit more physical because he liked to talk shit very often. And the Steelers are coming off a very convincing win in the wild card round to beat the division champion Cincinnati Bengals. This was a very weird game as far as on the first play from scrimmage, Carson Palmer's knee exploded.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so that would have been a very different game if he plays in it.
Geez.
So they're down 17-14 at halftime, but John Kitt is not. He's not going to lead you, and the Steelers end up pulling that game out 31-17. The best part was after the game, they're in the locker room, and Cowher was like, when I say who day, you say we day, who day. They do it 3 times, and then probably Porter, but one of the guys goes, who they think gonna beat them Bengals? It was just the epic trolling. Chad Johnson apparently got in a fight in the locker room at halftime, so it was good. But we're here.
That's a classic.
For this game. January 15th, 2006 at the RCA Dome in Indianapolis. I remember this game because I was not living in the contiguous United States at the time. And when I lived in Hawaii, NFL games, particularly the early ones, would come on at 6 a.m.
Yep.
I have not slept the night before. I was playing Golden Century Club with my frat bros and stayed out all night. I walk in at 5 in the morning and say, you know what? It's Sunday. I'm going to stay up for this one.
Well, you have to make that decision. Are you going to go to sleep early or are you just going to stay up all night? And Dom's the kind of guy that stays up all night.
I am the type of guy that stays up all night. And I'm very nervous because I remember watching that Monday night game going, please, just please. And start off the game. Steelers get the opening kickoff and Ben throws an incompletion. And you're thinking, they're not going to ground and pound him? And the ball was a catchable one to Randall L. He likely should have had it at the sticks. And you're thinking, okay, it's second and long. Here comes Bettis up the middle, or Parker on a sweep, or Parker on, a lead or something. Nope. They get Indianapolis fooled so hard. Ben lofts this absolute gem of a pass to Heath Miller, who's wide open 36 yards down the field. And that that play, I think, took the crowd out of it. Like, they were just surprised that they moved the ball that well.
And just like you were saying, I feel like everybody thought, all right, they threw the first down. They're obviously going to run this down. Like, there wasn't any, question. And then he airs it out for almost 40. And, yeah, like you were saying, it takes the crowd out, which was a huge thing for the Colts coming into this game they had this home field advantage.
Yeah.
And Ben kind of takes them right out, and this drive takes them out.
I remember watching this going am I still hammered? Is this really happening?
Because it looks like a different Steelers team coming for this first drive.
There's no way Ron Meeks would have planned for this, Indianapolis' defensive coordinator. Ben hits Miller again on the drive for 18 to get into field goal range. Hines Ward gets another 5, and then Randall L. gets him a big 11-yard catch on third down to the Indy 13. Bettis gets him down to the 6 to set up a 3rd and goal. And then a great pass on this little kind of skinny post to Randall L. And it was behind him, too. His first touchdown in 17 weeks.
So since the first week, and that's the thing that you're right, it was behind him, so it was kind of like a really good catch where he has to go back and grab it, and yeah, they're up 7-0, and this is like we were saying, like the audience kind of gets taken out right here because they really drive it into their face. Like it's one of those drives where there really almost wasn't any question. There was a couple of third downs, but it was almost just like,
But it was just rock and fire.
Rock and fire, yeah.
It was rock and fire because I think to start the game, Ben was 6 for his first 7.
Yeah.
The only drop being the Randall L on the first play. And this is what I'll always say about the Colts in comparison to New England during this era. Both of these teams were bullies. You hit New England in the mouth, they'll just come back at you with some dark arts fucking Hogwarts shit. Like, you hit Indianapolis in the mouth, they're going to cower away from you. This team, unlike New England, they hadn't had this type of bitch slap all year outside of the San Diego game. And it shows on their opening drive.
I was going to say, yeah, it's almost better sometimes to get used to that because you're right, where they come out scared right away on their opening drive.
Yeah. 2 incompletions, or James has a 2-yard run, and then Manning has 2 incompletions for a 3 and out, the biggest of which, Hope comes right over Marvin Harrison to bat it down and force it and give Pittsburgh the ball back. And time of possession is the name of the game in this game, I will say, at least for the Steelers and the lack of touches by the Colts. Steelers get the ball back. He has an awesome pass on the following drive to Jeremy Tooman for 19 yards. But Freeney gets around the edge because he's a Hall of Fame player, ends up hitting Ben as he's trying to throw it. Cato June makes a pick, but they're still in Indianapolis territory. So they take over again, and you're thinking, okay. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that first drive was nice.
Well, you kind of think like, because a lot of this time it happens like, all right, Indianapolis is going to calm down. Peyton Manning's going to do what he does. And it's not the case. You really see a shell of this team in the first half, essentially.
Well, I think part of it is they were rusty from sitting all their guys because at 13-0, you clinch pretty much damn near everything in your conference by that point. So you're resting your starters. Nobody's in sync. And you're playing a team for the last 5 weeks who has been at death's door.
Yeah, who has been playing lose and you're out kind of thing. So yeah, it's a different vibe, and you could tell in this first half.
The other thing, defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau did a fantastic job of disguising coverages and bringing pressure that Manning could not even outsmart pre-snap. So that also, I believe, factored in on the following drive. Manning has 2 incompletions sandwiched around a James 3-yard run, and they go 3 and out again.
They go 3 and out again.
My big thing is Pittsburgh's got probably the top run defense in the league. You still have Edger and James. Like, if Manning's not in sync, I think he started 0 for 4. Give him the ball more.
Yeah.
Like, you're not necessarily dealing with crappy guys. You have weapons all around you. Steelers get the ball back at their own 28. Parker has a 9-yard run along with Dan Kreider, their awesome fullback. Oh, man, I remember one time he pancaked Ray Lewis, and I got a quarter chub. I'm not going to lie. It was that badass. They get a first down. It's 3rd and 10 at their own 39, and then Ben throws an awesome just laser to Hines Ward, who bounces off 2 guys. Nick Harper seems to be hurt for a while, and then as Bob Sanders is chasing him, not only gets his face mask grabbed, he grabs Sanders' face mask along with him and drags him for 45 yards into the red zone. It's an incredible play. You guys need to watch that.
He almost scores a touchdown on it. I feel like there was a couple of steps that he takes, and then he does definitely take a face mask right at the end, and then it sets Steelers up again, and you're looking at it like this should be the opposite. Do you know what I mean? Like the passing plays, just the way it unfolds, you're almost like, oh, I thought the Steelers were going to have trouble on the offense, and I thought the Colts were going to be, airing it out, and literally it's to the Steelers' credit in this first coming out, they really came out to win.
Well, you throw to get the lead and you run to win. And
yes.
That's kind of what ends up happening here is on 2nd and goal, Ben buys some time because this is when you start seeing, though, the pass protection kind of start leaking for Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And I think that may have factored into what they do in the second half. But he rolls out and finds Miller in the end zone, just an absolute bullet with a dude draped on him for another touchdown. 14-0. It's 14-0 with almost 3.5 to go in the first quarter. And I remember watching this going, I'm not going to say a word the rest of the game. I'm just going to hunker down and hope for the best.
Put a blanket over my head.
I had my comforter on, and I was just every so often I'd get up to grab a Coors Light or go to the bathroom at commercial. Like, it was pretty damn insane. Indianapolis gets the ball again, and on the first play, Manning sacked for -8 yards by Von Olhoffen, of all people.
Yeah, well,
and their defensive linemen were great, but they are not sack artists at all.
And this is like the feeling that I feel like was rippling through, because the Colts, I mean, by this time their fan base is almost completely out of it. And then he gets sacked on this first, because you get this feeling like, oh, we could have a drive here, turn it around, coming in the second half. He gets sacked right away, and you're just like, we're fucked.
Yeah.
That's like literally the feeling. If you watch this game and you watch this down, like there's just like a silence in the stadium.
You're like, Brady's already done it. Who the hell is this guy with 14 letters in his last name? The next play, though, they get their first down of the game on a 24-yard pass to Harrison.
Which is crazy to think about, this offense getting their first down that deep in the second.
It's nuts. James goes for no gain on the next play. Then Tarek Glenn has a false start. Then another sack, this time by James Ferrier for -9. Sets him so far behind the sticks that like a tunnel screen to Wayne only gets him 13, and they're not even sniffing a first down.
No.
And they have to punt again. They have to 3 straight possessions, 3 punts as we start the second quarter. Steelers, though, their offense kind of cools down for a while.
Well, I feel like you see them kind of pull back and not let Ben just kind of open it up.
Yeah, and in later years, it would be the exact opposite.
Yep.
Where they would just be like, no, we're sweeping the leg right now. But at this point in his career, for whatever reason, and I think a lot of it has to do with Cower being the disciple. Well, he was the disciple of the coach we'll talk about in our next episode in a certain brand of football that he played. Ben sacked for -10 on the first play. Hines gets him 18 to set up a 3rd and 2, but an incompletion to Randall L. I think this one was the drive where Randall L. was completely brought down by one of Indy's defensive backs, like way downfield to where that should have been a penalty and you're in scoring range again.
Yes. Well, some people are saying, and it'll come up later, that Pittsburgh really gets the majority of the calls, if you know what I mean.
We'll talk about it, Chris.
Randall L., I do remember this because he literally gets like tackled off ball, and you're just like, nothing? No?
No, you're not going to do a goddamn thing.
All right. Sorry about that. Sorry for wanting the rules to be called.
Yeah. You call this college rules? No. Indy gets the ball back, and you're thinking, okay, finally, here we go.
Yeah,
Peyton Manning. This is going to be the greatness.
This is
3 straight incompletions. 3 straight incompletions to Wayne. And the coverages and blitzes, and you could tell the frustration on his face.
Yes.
He had this demeanor about him from the first possession up until the very end of the game where
it was almost like he was dreading seeing what the Steelers were going to what was going to be open, like the options he had to take, he was almost dreading, because you could almost see it. And like you were saying, they should have been running the ball, and they weren't, just to open it up a little.
You're down 14, but it's still the early second quarter.
Yep.
It's not like it's the second half and you're pressed for time, but what Pittsburgh ends up doing in the second half really ends up fucking you over with this type of strategy. Mm-hmm. But they end up having to punt. Pittsburgh's at their own 44, and on 2nd and 10, Parker runs for 7, and then Baron Haynes gets another 5. Unfortunately, when they move the sticks, they only get a 1-yard run out of Parker and have to punt again back to Indy. And this sets up, in my opinion, the biggest drive, honestly, of the entire game, because of what happens, and I'll get into it later, how long this took for Indianapolis. They get the ball with 10:59 to go in the second quarter, and this was the drive that got them in the game because they gave the ball to Edger and James.
Yep.
2 runs gets them a first down. Then a big pass to Clark gets them 21. James runs for 15. Brian Fletcher, their backup tight end, has an 11-yard catch. They have 4 first downs in a row. Like, you're thinking, okay, they're finally starting to click. They're kind of figuring out where these guys are lining up pre and post snap and having an offensive strategy. Like, they're really not being stopped, essentially, on this drive.
I was going to say, they're really moving the chains like we kind of thought they were going to go into this. game and do. And yeah, this is the Colts offense that you thought.
Yeah, this is the team I thought would show up and make me very sad. Wayne had a 4-yard catch, Fletcher for 7, and then James for 5, and then another great run by him, or a catch by James for 9 yards, and then they're set up at the 6-yard line on a 7-yard line on 2nd and goal, and James catches it. I think he's going into the end zone, gets to the 1, and he's stopped by Hope and a bunch of other Steeler defenders to prevent him from getting in on 3rd and goal. Unfortunately for Indianapolis, a false start.
So they go back to
the 6.
3rd and 6.
And then Aaron Smith lines up in the neutral zone, so it gets them half the distance, so they're at the 4. And then I was a little weirded out by this. They ran it with James here. Not to say that they shouldn't have, but your whole offense is designed on spreading the field. You have 2 guys who are in the Hall of Fame as wide receivers and Clark. They run it with James, and Aaron Smith makes an amazing play to stop him short of the goal line. And at 4th and 1, you're thinking, well, they're going to go for it, right? I never understood this decision. I bet you now they would.
Yeah.
I bet you now that they would go for it. But in 2005, they just sent Vanderjagt out there to kick a field goal.
To chip it, yeah.
A chipper, and I mean, granted, he makes it, so it's 14-3.
But still, I agree with the time of the game and it being 4th and 1. And you do have a strong running game, and like all of the things point to actually going for it. And I kind of feel like you're right, where that stop to make them kick a field goal might have been one of the bigger stops, because it really stopped their momentum, even though they scored.
I remember thinking at the time, when Smith made that tackle, it's not the biggest play that everyone remembers. I said that is the biggest play of the game.
Yep.
Because it's still a 2-score game. And what I brought up before, this drive was 15 plays and took 9:36 off the clock. All Indianapolis could get was a field goal.
And that's pretty much the whole second quarter.
That's almost the entirety of the second quarter, because Pittsburgh gets the ball back. They really only need a first down, because Indy's starting to call their timeouts to try and get another possession.
Yep.
But a pass interference penalty, or a defensive holding penalty, gives Pittsburgh the time to just run the clock out and go into the second half. And like halftime, I bet everyone was thinking like, is that the score?
Yeah.
Is that Indianapolis? I wasn't shocked Pittsburgh would have 14 points. I was more shocked Indianapolis had only 3.
And because they had literally one good drive. And it wasn't even like they had a couple of like, oh, we got in the red zone and this, you know what I mean? It was like literally like one good, extremely long drive. So going into the second half, I imagine, and I feel like this is the big thing, because the Steelers really took the fans out of it. There was not like a feeling of like, this is our comeback, this is our game. No. It was almost like a feeling of like, oh shit, we suck.
You don't win games with field goals, Chris, and you don't win friends with salad, like the Simpsons told us.
God damn right.
Indy gets the ball first to open the second half. James has a 2-yard run, 2 James runs get him 8 yards. Wayne has a catch for 9. And then what ends up happening is on 3rd down, Chris Hope, he was the hero of this game on defense at a lot of points, tackles Dallas Clark short of the sticks on a 4-yard gain, which all but forces Indianapolis to punt the ball back, and any momentum that they had
is gone.
Is gone.
That's what I mean.
Just played everything in front of them. The Steelers have a really good drive here, and this is when we start getting into how conservative they are in the second half as far as play calling.
And just, I feel like at this point, they're like, we're going to kill the clock as hard as we can, which is, I feel like early for it, but works out for them. So it's hard to talk shit on it.
Like, this drive, I'll preface by saying, doesn't end with any points. But what it does, it takes 5.5 minutes off the clock.
Yep.
And it's just a steady diet of Parker running the ball, Randall L. making a couple nice catch, and then what ends up happening is on this drive, Ben gets sacked by Dwight Freeney as they're on the edge of field goal range. He kind of bangs his elbow against Robert Mathis's helmet, and he's already dealing with a broken thumb because that dude was bionic, as proven through his 2 decades in the NFL. I don't know if he had some other lingering injury, but that was when you saw the faucet completely turned off in the passing game.
Yep.
Luckily for the Steelers, Chris Gardocki comes in and has a great punt down to the Indianapolis 9-yard line. So they're kind of on the edge of the field goal range. Jeff Reed's a good kicker for them. He kicked for close to a decade for them pretty well. 55 yards even indoors, not going to do it.
But you could tell the strategy line up with them kicking that. They're like, no, we'll punt it to you. We'll play defense.
We're going to flip. We already flipped the field after this awesome punt.
You prove that you can beat our defense. You know what I mean? Prove that you can do more than a 3 and out. And that's the thing that I feel like kind of works in their favor, where you're surprised that the passing game gets shut off, but maybe the injury, maybe just the overall strategy where you're like, all right.
Well, this drive is an absolute disaster for the Colts. First 2 plays, 2 incompletions by Manning. One of them, Casey Hampton, big snack, bless your heart. I wish you would have got that sack. You see this 350-pound man making Peyton Manning run for his life, and he's oh so close. Oh, God, he was an awesome player. I miss you, big snack. 2 incompletions to James and Harrison on the first 2 plays. And then on 3rd down, Ferrier almost gets a safety on him. He sacks Manning.
I thought if you look, the
on
original
first blush,
play,
it looks like it.
The original play, even the announcers are like, whoa. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a correct call.
Because when your feet are in the field of play, not in the end zone, and it's one of the ones the refs got right, Chris.
Yes, this is one of the ones as we go into the end of this game where you're like, all right, the refs want, and to be honest, a lot of people wanted the Colts to win this one. That's why I feel like we're in the
The Steelers, the Denver Broncos.
The Steelers tried to give it to them at the end.
Yes, they did. So Hunter Smith has to punt from basically the end line in his own end zone. Gets it to midfield, but Randall L has all sorts of room and takes it down to the Indy 30. So they're already in field goal range just by how smart they played that last drive as far as decision making.
And trusting their defense.
And then it's just a steady diet of the run. This drive, I think, is 6 plays, all runs. Parker gets 11, Bettis 7, then 1, then another 9, and then down at the 1-yard line, they give it to Bettis, and he leaps over the line. He doesn't just ball in, he leaps over. They're running a lot to the right side, and I think a lot of it had to do with Faneca being able to pull.
Just pull,
And as much issues as they had pass protecting, particularly as the game wore on, the guys up front in the run game really proved themselves to be kind of the difference in extending drives.
Yes, they definitely could just make that 3 and like you were saying, like in a cloud of dust. Going into this touchdown run, I love this when the announcers do it because they just go, all right, let's get a close-up on his calves. And they go to Jerome Bettis' calves, and they're just like these giant, like, ham hocks. And he's like, so he's going to be pushing this entire defense, and then he jumps in, and you're like, that was great.
Yeah, what was it? I think the Steelers, one of their play-by-play guys, Tunchilkin, was like, can buses fly?
Yep. So good. I love it.
So they're up 21-3, and there's 1:19 left in the third quarter. So good, just so smart as far as time of possession. And they didn't do anything flashy, and I'm thinking, it's happening.
Yeah,
it's that Ron Paul gif of the fucking Technicolor. It's happening.
Yes, seriously.
My cell phone is blowing up. I'm not even touching it. It's over there on the side. I'm just quietly sipping a Coors Light, being silent, thinking, my God, this could actually take place.
Well, the 21 points isn't crazy, I feel like, in the third, but literally the Colts having 3 points is fucking insane. And that's the thing that we kind of see where going into this, I bet you were probably like, oh my God, this is it. This is us.
Well, and I'm thinking on this next drive, this is it.
Yeah.
Because while Indy starts moving the ball, Manning has an 8-yard pass on 3rd and 10, and we're starting the fourth quarter to Edger and James. On 4th and 2, Dungy sends the punt team out, and Manning waves them off.
Back, which you have to give it up for Manning for this one because Dungy, to his credit, Dungy's like, we need to punt this, and Manning's like, no, we can do this.
If we punt it, 5 more minutes is going to come off the clock.
At least.
Even if they don't score.
Exactly. And that's literally, which is kind of crazy that I feel like NFL wasn't as aggressive as it should have been in this era.
Yeah.
Like with the kicking of the field goal, like with this play where Manning had to be like, no, we can do this.
I think Manning watched that whole most of the third quarter from the sideline going, how many more times am I going to get it back?
Yes.
We're down by 3 possessions.
Yes.
3 possessions is not very easy to come back from. So on 4th and 2, he has a completion to Brandon Stokely for 13 yards to the Indy 49. Wayne has a 1-yard catch. And then Dallas Clark, oh my God. God.
Just
Why?
the
you
run
let that
after
douchebag wide open, busted coverage.
Busted coverage so much so that he had so much room to run after, and this is what they
was wide open.
Yes, this is what they covered the whole. I feel like this is what the Steelers did so well was they just didn't let them have anything after the catch.
Yeah,
and they really closed down as to who was getting the options. And this
Clark broke a tackle and he was gone.
This was it. Yeah,
he just outran everybody, and there was really nobody to outrun once he got past those 2 defenders. And Indy scores a quick touchdown to make it 21-10. So kudos there, Manning, on that particular play.
Well, if the Colts had pulled this out, everybody would be looking at that like, oh man, that was the play. That was the, you know what I mean? And it was great strategy on his end, but yeah.
And Pittsburgh gets the ball back, and this is when I think Deerdorf and Enberg, who are both doing the game, start saying, they're putting 9 in the box. Maybe a little play action on 1st or 2nd down. But the Steelers don't do that. And to their credit, though, on this drive, they move the ball.
Yep.
And they milk the clock.
Yep.
It's an
they
important
stick with
drive.
their strategy.
It takes almost 8 minutes off the clock. Parker gets 13, then 3, then another 5. Bettis gets him a first down on 3rd and 1 with a 1-yard run. And then Bettis for 1 on 3rd and 1. And then on 4th and 1, Ben sneaks it across the line for a first down. And should it have happened, Chris? Or...
Well, this is the thing that, because I feel like even the announcers were like, all right, we're going to be looking for Ben to get a sneak in this, and the placement of the ball might favor the Steelers a little bit.
Yes, it did, number 1. But number 2, what happened before the play?
Oh, what happened before the play?
The no penalty.
Oh, okay, this is the no. Oh, geez. I totally lost it on that one. Oh, my God. So it's 4th and 1, and the Colts think that the Steelers flinch or whatever, have movement on their end, and so they all go.
Yeah.
But the Steelers didn't move, so it should have been
neutral zone infraction. So offsides.
And then the refs call that nothing happened.
They just replayed the down over again, which made no sense. And I've never seen it before.
And I think the call was there was no contact. And if you go back and look, like 3 of the Colts players go in, and you're just like, yeah, that's The thing that kind of sucks with this is even as a neutral fan, you're just like, just make a call.
Yeah,
I don't care what.
I'll be honest. Faneca flinched a little bit on that play. Now, whether he was abated, I don't know, but you make a call either way. I don't care. If they had called that false start, I'd have been like, well, fuck, now you got to punt. You're not going for it on 4th and 6 where you are on the field.
But that's the thing is that everybody, even on the Steelers side, were just like, make a call. Let's not, because I feel like the refs were just like, I don't know.
You guys want to do this again?
Yeah, just do it again.
Let's do it again.
And then he gets the yard to continue the downs, and
on the very next series of plays, they end up having another 4th and 1 that Bettis ends up getting.
Yep.
So they move the sticks to the Indy 40. They're taking up all of this time. Bettis has 5 yards on the first 2 plays, but then a great play, I believe, by David Thornton and the Colts. Parker tries to take one outside, and he takes him 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Oh, yeah.
So, granted, they had with this drive and the one before, they had 11 straight runs, though. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback, but you ran the ball 11 times into a 9-man box and took that amount of time off.
It was great.
So Gardocki comes in to punt, and it's a touchback. It was so close. It bounced on the goal line back into the field. I mean, it was...
Oh, yeah.
If he had got that inside the 10, we might not even be talking about this game as actually exciting.
Yeah.
And if the refs made a proper call on the next drive, Chris, we might not even be talking about this game, and I might have a few more years tacked onto my life.
That's very true.
6:03 left in the game. Crowd is silent. The crowd is dead.
Yeah, the crowd's dead at this point.
You're down by 11.
I mean,
at most you'll touch the ball twice, and that's if you score quick and Pittsburgh has a 3-and-out.
Yep.
So Manning gets through his own 44 with a 24-yard pass to Wayne. The next play he's looking for Fletcher, his backup tight end. And out of nowhere comes Troy Polamalu. At this point in the game, he's been very close on a number of plays to making a pick. He comes out of just nowhere, steals it. He just takes it away.
One of my favorite quotes from Peyton Manning, who, I mean, like him or not, he's a top quarterback, said, "I've never seen anybody on defense cover more ground than Troy Polamalu."
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you watch some of these interceptions, you're like, oh, he was in the middle of the field when that ball started to go over. And this is one of those where he covers ground, catches the ball, spins a little on the ground.
He spins on the ground, which is a football move.
And then his own knee knocks the ball out.
As he's getting up, and he's up. That is a textbook fumble, is what that is.
And then he recovers it right away and is down.
And everyone is going nuts.
Yes.
As they should.
As
on
they
the
should.
Steelers sideline.
Yes.
And, here's a funny Troy Polamalu thing, Chris. He was their first-round pick the year after the 2002 season with that secondary.
Yeah. That's what I mean. They were like, look, guys, we need somebody back
we
here.
We don't know he's going to be this good, but we need somebody.
True. Yeah.
So the Colts, because you're down by 11 points and you actually have timeouts, you have to challenge the play because
you have to.
Who knows? This is the officiating crew, Pete Morelli. They're doing a bang-up job. Maybe they'll hand us one.
I'm confused.
My God, they did.
I'm confused as to even what the call was. So what was said on the field was he didn't get his knee up before he. So his knee was still on the ground while he caught the ball, so it was an incomplete pass.
Which is stupid because he made a football move after securing possession of the ball.
Yes.
So what is a catch anymore if you make a horseshit reversal like that? And they give the ball back to Indianapolis. This was the first time I actually said some words during the game. And it was a string of expletives, one of which included calling Paul Tagliabue and the rest of the heads of the NFL Archie Manning's cum receptacles. So remember that one very fondly.
Well, it was an obviously blown call, and it comes after the non-call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's just stuff where you're just like, I don't care if you're a fan of either of these teams. You just want...
You want a good officiated game. That was just so bad.
So bad.
And if you were a Steeler fan or a fan of anyone not in New England or Indianapolis, you had to be going,
what?
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Don't feed into those conspiracy theories. But it gives the Colts new life. It gives the crowd new life. And Indianapolis takes full advantage. Manning starts clicking, gets Clark for 9, Harrison for 20. Then... Reggie Wayne gets him down to 1st and goal at the 3 with a 24-yard pass down the sidelines. And on the next play, Edgerrin James goes up the middle for 3 yards.
Yep.
Reggie Wayne catches the 2-point conversion in the corner. It's 21-18, and there's 4:29 left.
And
oh my God.
If the game, if the refs made a different call, you could see this game almost being sewn up right there. As it is, the Steelers have to kill the clock again.
They have to kill the clock, and for the only time in the second half, they don't. What ends up happening, offensive pass interference on Nick Harper on Cedric Wilson does defensive pass interference, gets him a first down. Bettis has 2 2-yard runs, but on 3rd and 6, an incompletion to Hines Ward forces them to punt. But it's a good punt by Gardocki because it gets him inside the 20 down to the 18 with 2.5 to go. But Indy's got full set of timeouts, 2-minute warning. This is when you play Renegade, Chris, and Desperado. This is when you play it.
This is when you play your song.
This is when they would play it. This is when you play your song. So James gets a 2-yard run on first down because they're obviously not pressed for time. And then Joey Porter, who is he's an insane person regardless of what just transpired. But he is so incensed at the officials They send him out there. He's unblocked, which I don't know why you don't block. And Manning, after the game, took a bunch of heat because they were like, what happened during the game? Well, we had some problems with protection.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he totally hung his O-line out to dry, and granted, they didn't do a very good job, especially on this drive. Porter comes off the edge screaming, sacks him for 8. It's 3rd and 6.
And rips him. That's the thing, is you kind of see it. And, I mean, he's not wrong with some of these plays that if you go back and watch, you're just like, oh, yeah, he literally didn't have anybody touch him. No. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing that I feel like Peyton was talking about, where he's just like, you can't have somebody have like...
Well, hey, instead of yelling out Omaha 400 times in the 40 seconds before a snap...
Papa John.
Shabba-da-ba. Instead of doing that, maybe instruct your O-line to what a protection scheme should look like. Mm-hmm. Anywho, making excuses like that. On 3rd and 16, just throws a terrible incompletion over the deep middle. And it's 4th and 16 down at their own 12. And on an amazing play, LeBeau sent a ton of people on this 4th down play. Like, he wasn't fucking around. They sent Polamalu up the middle, which freed both not Harrison. He'll come into play later. But Porter and Ferrier meet at the quarterback and just crunch Manning at the 2-yard line. And you're thinking, yes.
Well, it's not even just the sack. It's a sack that puts the ball at the 2. So I don't even care if this is going to come up, but it's like, even if we don't run it in for the touchdown, we're obviously going to kill some time and kick it. And you know what I mean? Like,
if we're stopped 4 times, they're out of timeouts.
They're out of timeouts. Yeah, I think they might have had 1.
Yeah, by this point. But yeah, they're out of timeouts. Even if we don't score, we're up by 6 points with 20 seconds, maybe?
Exactly.
Like that?
The time just doesn't make sense for...
But Indy still has timeouts left, which kind of factors into their decision. Because when Pittsburgh takes the ball over... Mind you, by this point, I'm not watching the game.
Yeah,
I went out of my room onto the concourse in the dorm room and called my mom, who's a huge Steelers fan. And I'm like, I can't believe they did it. This is so great. Like, we're going nuts. And I'm like, they're just going to take a knee, right? She's like, no, the timeouts and everything. They're lining up in goal line. I'm like, oh, yeah, score bus. And, I'm waiting. And there's like a 3-second pause on this 1st down play from the 2. And then I hear my mom scream, oh, my God, he fumbled. I'm not watching the game. And I'm like, what? Oh, my God, what's it? She's like, oh, my God, he's running. Oh, my God. Oh, Ben got him! Ben got him! I run back into my dorm room, and I'm watching the replay. Chris, if I watched this live, I would have had an aneurysm, shit my pants, pissed my pants, vomited. I would have been like that horse in Half-Baked after he feeds him all the candy.
He was a diabetic.
I would have keeled over and died if I watched this in person.
Well, let's go over what happens.
I can't talk about this anymore.
They give it to the bus, and I thought the announcer had one of the best comments on it where he goes, Jerome Bettis, I feel like for the first time in this entire game, ran straight up and down and left the ball just completely exposed because...
low man wins, and he was not low on this
Not
play.
Even close.
He's even talked about it where he's like, I went over the top the first time, but then I thought I could get skinny. And when the ball is exposed, Gary Brackett makes an awesome hit. His helmet hits the ball, and it pops out. And
luckily for the Steelers, Ben is paying attention and starts to backtrack because we literally have a Colts player pick it up.
Nick Harper, who earlier that week was in a domestic dispute, which left him with a
cut on his hand,
gash in his right leg.
Oh, in his right leg.
And he was injured earlier in the game. And this is what would have scared the shit out of me. It's why you see so many touchdowns on like field goals that are missed that are returned in the end zone. The Steelers have completely goal line personnel in. It's their jumbo package.
Yeah.
It's just tight ends, offensive linemen, Kreider, and Bettis.
So it's nobody to catch the play.
No one's going to run him down.
No.
Or unless somebody can kind of either trip him up or veer him off to the side so someone can get an angle. Ben trailing the play is their last hope, and as he's backpedaling, they call him Big Ben because he's 260 fucking pounds. So he's also another lineman, makes the immaculate redemption or the tackle to stop him from scoring.
It was such a lucky tackle. I'll tell you what, they call it a shoestring tackle because he literally, and to Ben's credit, he really goes right at his thigh. He goes to where you kind of should but he almost misses.
He
really trips one of his thighs, and I feel like it was almost so bad that it worked.
But even if he tripped him, because I've watched this a bunch of times, him just getting a piece, Tuman and I think Miller and Hardings are right there. Mm-hmm. Granted, Harper would have probably gained another 20 to 25 yards.
But they would have slowed him up.
They would have eventually ran him down because his momentum was stopped just enough by Roethlisberger had he not fallen. And at that point, it's time for Simon and Garfunkel's "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend." Because
it's a different song.
Oh, it's a sad song.
So, and this is where we were talking about it earlier, where Manning and what's the kicker's name?
Vanderjack,
who were not seeing eye to eye. So we see Manning start to march down the field just to get into field goal range.
This is where I'm
down
like,
3.
Please stop them. Oh,
yes.
God.
Start to march.
Jesus, Buddha, Allah, I love you all. They get the ball at their own 42. First play, Wayne has a 22-yard catch to put him at the 36. Harrison has another catch for 8. And then they finally call their first timeout, Indianapolis. This is what I don't understand, though. Harrison gets them 8 yards, okay, essentially down to the Pittsburgh, I believe, 28-yard line.
So it's 2nd and 2 or 3rd and 2?
It's 2nd and 2. Indianapolis, on the next 2 plays,
pass the ball.
They not only pass it, but they go for broke passing it.
Yes.
They're not just like, Clark, why don't you run a comeback or hey, Fletcher, run an arrow route for us or something. Just something to get open because Pittsburgh's just trying to prevent them from scoring a touchdown. There's space
in the
secondary to pass.
And they need to get 2 yards.
You have 2 timeouts and Edger and James as your running back. Pittsburgh's probably... they don't have probably more than 4 or 5 guys in the box. Why not run it? Totally trick them.
At least set up an easier field goal.
But get that first down so you're not forced to kick on 4th down. But Manning drops back and throws this deep ball to Reggie Wayne, and McFadden, man, perfect coverage on Wayne to bat the ball away, which Wayne almost caught off the ricochet again in the end zone. There's a great shot of Dungy whining, that's pass interference. And it's like, nah, he had blanket coverage on that Hall of Famer on that one. And then on the next one, it must have been a miscommunication between Manning and the receiver. McFadden almost picks it off, tossing it into his own. So it's 4th and 2. It is 4th and 2. They could not get closer with 21 seconds left. They send Vanderjack out, and then it's Bill Cowher, everyone. I miss him so much. He calls a timeout to ice Vanderjack, and Vanderjack points at him as he's doing it.
Yep.
Trying to give him the fucking business.
Which is wild, because...
You don't do that to the chin. You don't do that. So Vanderjack goes out there. He's the most accurate kicker in NFL history at this point. In his... What's he been kicking? About 6 years in the NFL? They send him out there for, a 44-yarder? And... What happens, Chris?
He shanks it so
bad.
Far right. The announcer almost laughs at it. He goes, he missed. He missed by a ton.
Yeah.
It was so bad that it's almost like his head wasn't in it. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but when Manning said this idiot kicker, you're like, oh, that might have been more accurate.
I will say one thing. On that extra point after the Clark touchdown, he sliced it to the right.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't kick that second extra point, but on that first one, it kind of snuck in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just something that had been going on pregame or anything like that, but when you're right, when I saw that ball go up and it was that far, I'm like, laces out, Hunter Smith.
Well, I thought it was interesting when you look at somebody's career, he got cut by the Colts, then got picked up by the Cowboys next year and got cut mid-season and never played in the NFL again.
Yeah, it was a 46-yard field goal, and it was just...
it ruined him.
It ruined him. Keep on the lookout. He could be entering your local police force very soon.
But it's just one of those where he was the most accurate kicker, and then...
Do you think he has a room like Ray Finkel's, only with Peyton Manning and Colt stuff?
Oh, my God.
Cozy if you're Hannibal Lecter. So... Steelers take 3 knees. The Colts, they were being such dickbags. They started calling the rest of their timeouts as they're taking. You're not going to get the ball back.
Yeah.
Like,
Dungy's weird that way. That's the only thing I could say about him, where you're just like, all right.
Him and Cal are coached together in Kansas City as assistants. But the Steelers end up pulling, to that point, the greatest upset of that era of NFL playoff divisional round games, because they were the first 6 seed to ever go to a conference championship game.
Yep.
And they win 21-18. Oh, and then the eroticism starts. They go to Denver, and Ben plays like he did the first 2 drives the whole game, and they send those sorry-ass Bronco fans home sad. And then they win a Super Bowl.
Go to Detroit. This is the thing I actually I want to bring up, because Bettis gives the ball up right at the 2-yard line to almost lose this whole thing.
Yeah.
He's literally was going to retire the year before. He decides to come back. Ben gets that tackle, and then they go on to win this Super Bowl for Jerome Bettis and for the rest of the Steelers in his hometown, which I thought that was such a great little thing where you're like, we're going to lose. Oh, shit, we're going to win it all.
You're playing with house money at that point. You're just like, all right, they're destined to win. But like
we were saying, the momentum, they were the hot team, especially at the end of the season, and then beating the Colts, they probably were like, yeah, no, we can beat anybody.
They won 8 in a row.
And they did.
To close the season, and made a young boy so happy. I mean, I'm 18, but still, a young man very happy. About gave me a heart attack, and probably contributing to some of my abuses in later life as far as substances. But thank you, Steelers, for always keeping it fun.